Everyone, and welcome to Emerging Technologies for Online Teaching. I am your presenter today. My name is Tracy Miller, and I'm the Online Teaching Coordinator in the Faculty Development Instructional Design Center at Northern Illinois University. Welcome to all of my colleagues from Northern Illinois University, but also welcome to some other colleagues and folks that have been joining our sessions from other universities within the states and around the world. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Again, I think we're going to learn a lot from each other, especially in a topic like this where we may have some different ideas about what emerging technology is and what it is for us. So I do have some objectives. I try to stay focused by identifying objectives before I start a workshop. So in this workshop, you'll discover some emerging technologies to create content, enhance communication, and to foster collaboration. So I've kind of in some ways narrowed it down to that focus, but I also want to talk about what it means, what this emerging technology means, and maybe what it means to me. So emerging technologies to me may be something that's really on the bleeding edge of educational technology, but it also may be emerging technology that's new to you, or technology that you're familiar with, but using it in a different way that's new to you. And so I kind of look at emerging technologies from a variety of ways. And in this case, we're going to be talking about, emerging technologies for your online teaching and your online courses. But there's a lot that goes into an online course. There's a lot of components that sort of need to fit together for it to make sense. And so I use this online quality pie, and it's actually a diagram from Quality Matters, and they kind of identify all these different components that need to work for a quality online course. In this particular workshop is going to deal a little bit with both your course design and your course delivery. So there may be some other questions that you have about it. Certainly we can talk about them, but I'm going to really try to focus on my objectives and these two elements of course design and course delivery. So some more thoughts, some more Tracy thoughts on emerging technologies. My best advice really is to look for solutions. If there's some sort of problem that you've identified in your course and you're kind of considering what solutions might be out there, then that's when you're going to look for this emerging technology. Don't start with the technology first. There's a lot of exciting things that we're going to talk about today. Hopefully you want to try them. Hopefully you want to incorporate them in your class. But don't do that just because you thought it was sort of cool, or you thought maybe it was that cutting edge or something. Choose technology that is going to help your students and really benefit your course. And then if you are going to try something new, start with something that's more low stakes. It can be stressful to you and your students if the technology does not quite work the way you expected, and it can be even more stressful if it's something that's going to jeopardize their success in the course, or even jeopardize their grade. And they can take that really seriously, as we all do. And then really look at this cost versus impact that any kind of emerging technology is going to have for your students. So I use this chart for a variety of decision-making purposes, and I think choosing the technology you're going to use in your course is a good one. So the idea is we have this impact area over here on the left, and I've added sort of a cost axis down here on the bottom. So really the best type of emerging technology is that technology that's going to have a lot of impact, a lot of benefit for your students, but it's going to have a low cost. And by low cost, I mean not only that it's going to be financially a low cost, but it's also going to be low cost in time it's going to take you to implement, or time that your students are going to need to learn it. So for different reasons, you may choose some of these different boxes. Maybe it's okay if there's a technology that has a higher cost, because that cost is really going to benefit your students. Of course, the one that you want to avoid is the very low impact for your students with a very high cost associated with it. And that's just kind of an initial pass that you would do when you're choosing technology for your online course, or quite frankly, any of your courses. One more caveat before we kind of dig into some of these emerging technologies. We have an hour together, and this is definitely an experiment that I'm going to send you a lot of links to so you can play around with some of these technologies, but this is not a hands-on workshop. So we're not going to be playing around too much while we're here together. We do have other hands-on workshops that are here in our collaboratory. And we also, for the NIU folks, we have a Teaching with Technology Institute that comes up at the end of May. And that's definitely something that you want to look for because we do a lot of hands-on activities in that particular institute. Okay, so I said I was going to break it down into some different categories. So the first one we're going to be talking about is creating content using emerging technologies. And the different categories that I've kind of broken them down to is creating content using video, and also creating presentations that have some kind of interaction built into them. We're also going to talk a little bit about screencasting, and I'm going to give you a screencasting tool that I really like. And we're also going to talk about freehand demonstrations. Okay, so the first one was using videos to create content. And I'm going to suggest a tool that is pretty readily available, and it has a cost that's already associated for other things for us. And that's actually to pull out your smartphone that has a video recorder on it, and get out of your office and create some content using your cell phone, using your smartphone, and it helps personalize it for your students, and it also may bring them to where you want them to be, kind of bringing the world to them maybe that you don't think about as much in an online course. So in this particular screenshot I have here, I am in front of the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas, and that was because I was at a conference out there. Actually, it was a Quality Matters conference, and did get a little bit of free time to kind of soak in the local sites. And the example this always made me think of, though, is if I was a history teacher, then I might want to introduce some content in front of a historical landmark like this. And maybe talk a little bit about why this landmark's important, or even talk about the importance of online students sort of getting out there and experiencing the world around them. The other example I thought with this particular experience was behind the Alamo, they've actually built a great botanical garden back there. So you could even be a biology teacher and you're trying to show your students some mid-Texas flora and fauna or something like that. So my first bit of advice is use that mobile technology that you probably already have available. Get out of your office and use it to create some content. My next example is to embed some interaction into your content when you're creating content. And there's definitely some pricey tools that you can use for that. But if you don't have those options, if that cost is too far out on the end for you, I would recommend using TED Ed. If you've heard of the TED videos, there is a TED Ed Lessons Worth Sharing. It'll allow you to take a video that you already have access to or that you've already created, and it'll allow you to add some interaction into this. So why would you want to do that? Well, you know, we often think about our online students kind of sitting privately in their own space in front of a computer. And if they start to watch a video, their thoughts are going to start to wander. They're going to be drawn into checking their email or checking social media or, you know, so many other options that are around them. But if you use TED Ed or some kind of interaction in your video, what it does is it pauses the video and it might pop up like a polling question for them, which is kind of the example that I have here, create a question. And again, it'll stop. The students will need to respond to the question and then the video will continue on. Similar to the way that you would stop and ask a question in the middle of a live lecture, or how I may stop and pause now to see if you have any questions that I need to answer. It also has a section called Dig Deeper. That is a reflection area, so you could build in some sort of reflection where you're just, again, pausing the video for a moment and having the students maybe reflect on what they thought the key point of that segment of the video was. Anything to kind of keep them engaged and keep them moving along. The nice thing about TED Ed in this particular service is you could also see how they responded to these questions and what they reflected on. I wouldn't recommend that you use this as a formal assessment, but it will give you that formative assessment of things that they may be struggling with or things that they think maybe are really important in the video that may be not the key concept that you are trying to deliver. So it allows you to kind of adapt to their thinking. So I like TED Ed for, again, that interaction. My next way of creating content that uses emerging technologies is screencasting. And I do want to throw the question out right now, keep you all engaged. Have any of you used a screencasting tool before? And you can just put yes or no into the text chat area. Okay, thank you everyone for paying attention first of all. I see a couple of yeses, but actually the majority I see right here is no's. So I'm glad that I can tell you about this. The example I have here is Screencast-O-Matic. And what I like about Screencast-O-Matic is it's free at a certain level. A lot of the tools I'm going to talk about today are free, you know, at sort of a basic level, and depending on what kind of bells and whistles, then they have some kind of a cost associated with it. Screencast-O-Matic gives you about 15 minutes per screencast. So this is not to be used for your hour-long lecture. But what I like about it is it will show what's happening on your screen as you're clicking on different things. But it also has the option of putting your talking head on the screen. So it has that 2 layers of drawing your students' attention to things. They can see you, they can see your passion, they can see what's kind of getting you to smile, but they can also see what you're pointing to on a screen. What I've done here with this Screencast-O-Matic is I've added it into Blackboard. I use it for my welcome that I do each week. So it's more of sort of an informal welcome to what's going to be happening in the week. And I kind of go over the weekly plan with them. And in some cases, I'm actually clicking on parts of the Blackboard course so that I can maybe walk them through where they need to find something or where they should check for their feedback or something like that. So it's really nice that they can kind of literally see what I'm clicking on. So this is from my course, and I have the students actually do screencasts. So I introduce them to this tool, but I will also talk to them about copyright, and I also want them to highlight the different tools that I use. So I use both Screencast-O-Matic to do the screencast. Then I uploaded the file into YouTube, and so the actual video is stored in YouTube. So you can definitely mix and match your emerging technologies too. My next tool that I'd like to share with you has to do with being able to draw on something for your students, because I get that question a lot. You know, that you're very comfortable with drawing on a whiteboard, and now you want to know how you can kind of reproduce that for your online students. So I like EduCreations for that. Again, it's a free service with a kind of at that basic level. And what you do is you get the app. It's a mobile application, but I've also seen people that hook up their bamboo tablets or something like that to their PC or their Mac. They will draw on the tablet and then create this EduCreations drawing as you're going along sort of experience. And what you do is you upload some sort of picture, whether it be an image that I'm showing here with a cell, it might be a map, it might be a diagram, and then you sort of just want to mark it up as you go along. So what you're going to do is you're going to upload that image, and then EduCreation is going to capture your voice and sort of what you're drawing on the screen here. And you can see that you can change the color of your pen. You can see here the video has been going on for 2 minutes and 44 seconds, but it's just sort of, again, capturing your movements as you're drawing on the screen. So kind of picture your students watching this, and they originally see sort of nothing but the cell diagram on the screen. Then they hear your voice as you're pointing out the different elements of the cell and pointing to them. Some of the downsides of this sort of basic feature is that you can only really work with one image. That's where if you upgrade to something that costs a little bit more, you can have it act more like a PowerPoint, but really you want to keep things pretty simple. Maybe you're going to do a series of diagrams like this, kind of attaching it to different elements that you want to talk to your students about. The other thing is once you start recording, it's sort of an all or nothing. So if you flub at the middle, you can accept your flub, or you have to start over again. So just a couple pros and cons with some of these tools. So that was sort of some of my emerging technologies for creating content. So again, I'm going to open up the text chat area if anyone has any questions or any tools that you would like to share that you use to create content. I'm just going to pause for a moment for that, and then we'll dive into some of my ideas about communication. Again, don't be afraid to add your text into the chat area if you do have any questions. Oh, Janet does. Can students annotate on educreations? No, they cannot, unless you combine them with something else. So if you created an education and then you downloaded it in something that you could annotate with, then they would be able to. For instance, if you blended that with the TED Ed creation. But no, it's definitely a pushing forward kind of technology. Kathy says, I was trying to find something to draw on a picture to send to a student. Any suggestions? Well, you could use this to draw on a picture and send to a student. I do have another technology that I'm going to talk about more with collaboration that I think might solve a lot of these issues because it's meant, because it's in the collaboration area, it's definitely meant to have more of a two-way feel to it. So enhancing communications, again, I've taken out my cell phone, and in this case, I am using in the picture here, I'm also using a selfie stick, and so that is not creating content as much as just giving you another option to be able to communicate with your students by simply using video and maybe even communicating on the go. Kathy says summer, warm weather. I know you caught me. There's like piles of snow outside though. It was one of those weird days where it was really sunny, but the weather was kind of messing with us. When you communicate on the go, you probably would prefer to be communicating on the go in a nice warm atmosphere. But again, we're using these tools maybe in a different way. And I think if we're communicating with them, even if we feel like we may not have time to do that announcement, or even maybe communicate with them in a way that you want to show your passion for something, remember to pull out those mobile devices and be able to communicate with them. Don't feel like you have to get back to your office and do it. Janet said, unless the lecture was about cold weather. You're absolutely right. And that would be important, right? I'm from New England, so I have a lot of friends right now that are like, they're taking snow days and they're kind of you know, showing those pictures of the big piles of snow like that. And they should be recording lectures for me in case I need that cold weather example. So here's something I found recently that I'm trying out in my class right now, and it's called Flipgrid. And what you can do is you can have discussion boards. And so we're all pretty familiar with discussion boards. You can set them up in your Blackboard course. And it's tech savvy, text heavy. You can use pictures and things if you want. Flipgrid actually allows you to have this discussion board, but you're using videos. And so this is really meant to address what students are comfortable with right now. And so maybe they're comfortable with just kind of expressing themselves, but not with text, but with their video. And so try out Flipgrid if you get a chance. What I did was I wanted to know, in the second week of the course, we talk about different technology skills that students need today as a digital learner. And so I wanted them to just kind of express what skills they thought they were going to be able to demonstrate and learn in this course. It's low stakes. I'm trying this. I've never tried it before. So I'm actually not going to grade it. I'm just going to see if they're kind of motivated to use this new technology and see how it goes. So I really don't have anything new to report except for that it was really easy for me to kind of start these two discussion boards that I use. Immediately knew what webcam to use. The sound quality was really good and things like that. So just something that if your students have ever expressed wanting to be a little bit more expressive maybe in a discussion forum, or you felt like there was a discussion you've always had in your face-to-face course, but it really needed to show their emotions or show those nonverbal communications, there is an option for a video discussion board. And I'm just popping in again to look at the folks that are joining our session. Thanks again, everyone that's here. We are text chatting a little bit. If you open up the arrow at the bottom of the screen, the bottom right-hand side of the screen, it'll open the Collaborate panel up, and the speech bubble is the first thing you can click on, and that's where we've been text chatting. If you have just joined us, you'll only see the text chat from sort of where you started. My next way to kind of communicate with your students is to consider the Blackboard student app, and that's something that students can get from the App Store, and they kind of put in Northern Illinois University and their normal user and password to get into the student app. And that will allow them to check their grades on their phone, which students love to be able to do. They can kind of tap in and check their grades anytime they're sort of ready to. But I also consider this as a way of using technology for the course to communicate with the students. And on the screen we have here, it says attention needed. And so that's going to give them all that information about anything that has a due date associated with it, when a new announcement comes out, maybe other items that are kind of coming up. Whatever you set up that kind of is in that to-do list or that attention needed list is something that the students can check mobily. So again, recommend that to your students. They can, again, kind of tap into that course anytime, anywhere, but make sure that you use things like your due dates and that so that your course will be able to communicate with them mobily. I'm going to shift gears again to fostering collaboration. And collaboration always makes me think of team-based projects, any kind of group activity you have with students working on projects together. And I found a great new brainstorming whiteboard tool that I want to share with you. And then I want to make sure that everything, it makes collaboration a little quicker, a little easier, and a little more efficient for you and your students. The first one is called Trello, and we actually have done entire workshops on Trello, but for those of you that have not been introduced to Trello before, we actually use it as a office productivity tool here in faculty development. So anytime we're kind of collaborating on a project, we like to use Trello. And it helps us sort of just come together. You invite each other to come to your Trello boards, and you can assign different tasks. You can see at the top there, this outline task. You can add different members to any given task that you might have. They organize Trello into these cards, and so anything that is maybe something you want to do or to share or to assign to somebody, you can kind of use these Trello cards. In this particular example, what I've done is I thought about something that might be a project that all the students will be doing, and it's going to have maybe different phases, maybe a research project. And so one of the first things that they're going to do is create an outline. So I created the card that was titled Outline. You can add labels to it, so you might be kind of color coding them. In this case, I made a red label, and that was based off of the due date, which is tomorrow. So if the students were working together, collaborating with each other, and they needed to have an outline done by tomorrow, this red flag hopefully would kind of pop up for them and let them know that, okay, time to get busy, folks. You have an outline due tomorrow. They can also add comments to this area. So if they're just kind of having their collaboration discussions or letting each other know what they're doing at the time, they can add a comment. You can share documents. You can attach them here in Trello in a variety of different kind of common ways that we're familiar with. Maybe they're sharing something off their desktop. Maybe they're using OneDrive, which is a collaboration tool, kind of a document sharing tool that we've been using here at NIU. And then sort of more of these universal ones like using Google Drive or Dropbox. So again, just gives them that kind of space to be able to collaborate together, share everything, and get to the Trello area really from anywhere, whether they're using the Trello mobile app and they're tapping it in, with their phones, or whether they have a couple different PCs that they're linking into, they're able to get to this shared space. So try out Trello if you've thought about any of these kind of activities. Good space for that. This is the one that I thought might be good for that idea of drawing, but drawing in more of a two-way, where it's not just the teacher drawing on a whiteboard and the students are sort of absorbing what they're doing. This Zeit board is a collaborative whiteboard, and so again, students can get to it from just anywhere that they can get to the internet, and they can start just freehand drawing. But in this case, this is sort of some sort of brainstorming session that the students have come up with. But what I liked about Zeitboard is they could annotate it, like we talked about earlier. The next student that looked at it could add more to the drawing or add text. They could also add images. They could add maybe links to things, anything that they're building this whiteboard now together, and not necessarily at the same time, at different times. They keep building onto this brainstorming session, and then they can share it back. So if you had assigned something to your students and you said, hey, I want to know how your brainstorming session went, they could share that back with you. Maybe it would come in the form of a link, but like maybe through an assignment or a blog post in Blackboard. It's also Zoomable, So the board really, as far as I've been able to find, doesn't have any limits. This particular screenshot that we see here, maybe a tiny little speck that could be zoomed into, and so as their ideas and their collaborations grow, this whiteboard really seemed to have the ability to kind of grow with their ideas. So try out Ziteboard. So you know if the annotations are date stamped to record collaborative activity. Um, that I'm not sure about. Um, I feel like it was. Do you know? I didn't play around with it enough to see that. It did seem like I could see who did what. So if you were using it to grade sort of who was contributing the most, you could kind of see that level of detail. Could you please spell the last one? Yes, I can. It's small in the corner. I may even have a link to it. I tried to pull up a bunch of links before I started, but no, I don't think, unfortunately, I didn't get to that one, but you should be able to find it through that. And actually, Janet and I couldn't figure out if it was Ziteboard or ZT board, but I'm going with Ziteboard because it rhymes with whiteboard. Okay, so here are some things that I did not find at the sort of free level, but I thought they were worth mentioning if you think that kind of fits your situation. So again, if it has that sort of, if the cost is worth it, you might want to check that out. The first one is called You See It. You See You, sorry. And I'm going to put that link in. Thank you for that URL, Janet. That helps. And this will give you the option to look at your students' presentations and be able to give them feedback on their presentations. So if they deliver, if they send a video or presentation as part of an assignment, you will be able to give them feedback in annotations, or even, again, depending on how, what degree you spend on it, you can even give them, you know, voice feedback. The interesting thing about that is that you can give them feedback when something is taking place. So if they're 2 minutes into a presentation and you realize that, you know, maybe they're already starting to get off concept or something, you can give them that feedback sort of as it's happening, rather than waiting till the end and they don't quite know when they got off topic. So that is a good resource. Quizlet. You can create quizzes on it. Your students can create quizzes on it. They like to use it to create flashcards. That's one of the kind of the things you can do with Quizlet. And so if there's any kind of key concepts that they're sort of studying for, they like to develop their own Quizlet and kind of quiz themselves using the flashcards. It could also track their progress. So if if you created some flashcards or a quiz, or they have, and they've given you access to kind of how they're using it, you can kind of see maybe what definition they all seem to be stumbling over, or where they seem to be maybe really getting it. And so you can kind of move on from there, go into something deeper. So Quizlet is kind of nice for that. Like I said, my students normally mention it when I ask them what their favorite sort of studying tool is. The next one, History. And actually, let me give you the URL for that if I could find it, because it's called something different now. Sutori. And that will allow you, or again, your students, to create timelines, interactive timelines. And so they can kind of pull together you know, an historical event, and maybe attach URLs or pictures or reflections from different moments in time, and sort of create this timeline using this tool. So this is kind of cool. There are entire tests from NIU on, yeah, I can see that. You said on Quilt. I'm not sure if you meant Quilt or Quizlet. I'm thinking it's Quizlet, but yes, that's another attribute of Quizlet, is that in all of these really, that other educators have already created things on there, and they're willing to share it. And so not only could you use this as a way for you to do things and for your students to do things, but you might find some really cool ideas that you want to incorporate into your course too. But I didn't know there was so many from NIU. Thanks for sharing that, Kathy. The next one is from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and it's a case scenario builder. So if you like to use case studies in your course, or you like to kind of paint a scenario for your student, check this out. Here, I found my Quizlet. Now I'm going to find it is developed by the university, and so it may not be as flashy as some of them, but these are definitely nice sharing educators that are allowing everyone to kind of use this tool, so I really appreciate that from them. Again, so if you use any of those sort of things in your course where you like to use case studies or scenarios, consider building them in this tool, or again, let your students use it to demonstrate to you that they're familiar with anything, whether it's kind of telling a story through a scenario, or being so good at kind of developing a case study that they kind of understand the content that you're presenting to them. The next one is called Notability. And again, this is one I got from my students. They are saying that they like to use this tool for annotating on things that are online, sketching things. So another good one that they can use to work together. It's $9.99. That's what I found out, and so some of my students love it and they're willing to spend the $9.99. Others are turned off by anything that isn't free. So you know, but Notability, I think it's a reasonable cost if it's something that the students are really going to get a lot of benefit from. So again, just a few smorgasbord. I'm throwing it out there to see what you think. So in the next section, I'm going to talk really about those trends. So these are trends that higher education has identified as these emerging trends that are happening really in education, but they definitely look at it from this educational technology standpoint. So there's a couple sources that I'm going to throw out to you. And the first one is the Horizon Report. The Horizon Report puts out several different editions every year, and one is the Higher Education edition. There's also one for K-12, and there's also one for Museum Sciences. They look, again, for those trends, they look for them kind of as a immediate trend all the way out to sort of something they think is on the horizon and will be more mainstream in, say, 3 to 5 years. They also look at things that are considered solvable issues that are coming up in higher ed, all the way to, they call them sticky problems or something, the ones that just seemed really complex, and they know these problems are coming up and they're just not sure how to solve them yet. But this is just a huge consortia of educators that are looking at these things every year. The one I put on the in the text chat for URLs, the 2016. The 2017 has come out already, but it's only come out to members so far. And so I'm not able to access their report yet. But usually, I bet you it'll be out in another month. So definitely look for that. So one of the solvable trends they see in education is this idea that more and more universities are starting to blend both the formal, that academic learning, with informal learning. So anything that they're using in class, they're also learning through their clubs, their associations, even their sports, maybe even in their professional life. So any way that we can use our influence maybe with them in our courses to sort of blend these formal and informal environments is becoming really important to the higher education landscape right now. So what can we do about it? Well, one of the things is we can use a couple Blackboard tools. The first one you'll see here with the picture of Stephanie Richter, Assistant Director, and that is our Blackboard portfolios. And that will allow the students to capture not only what's happening in your class or projects that you're assigning in your class, but maybe other things that are happening in other courses, again, other clubs, other situations. They're able to capture it in their Blackboard portfolio. I added a URL to our page on what portfolios are all about. We actually just had our portfolio workshop a couple days ago, so we do offer them usually a couple times a year. I'm hoping a couple of you were able to attend that, but if that's something that sounds interesting to you, definitely check out the Blackboard portfolios. I had my students for their final project last semester. They can either do a multimedia presentation or they can kind of pull together a lot of their explorations and put them into a Blackboard portfolio. And I was surprised, quite a few of them actually did. So the students seem to like it too. The other option over here is over on the other side. It's called Blackboard Achievement. And this is has to do with a emerging trend, but it's been around for a while. And it has to do with badging. So if you think back to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and how you get these badges for different achievements, different skills that you've acquired, it's the same idea. You're giving the students an opportunity to earn a badge in a particular skill or competency. Competency-based education also is not new, but I think it's being a little bit more revitalized right now, especially as it relates to the workforce. A lot of the adult learners and continuing ed type of students want to be recognized for skills that they already have and build upon them with more skills that they're gaining through higher ed. So that's just a couple ways that, you know, we can kind of address this emerging trend, which is blending that formal and informal learning. The next trend is measuring student learning, and I think, you know, that's not new. We've been measuring student outcomes, measuring course outcomes, assessing students since the dawn of time, but they're looking at it sort of as a big data item now, where, you know, overall, what are the students learning? Kind of on a bigger level. And I think it'll make more sense when I talk about some of the things that we're doing now here at NIU and some of the tools you can use. So we introduced this tool, this Blackboard tool, in this particular workshop last year, and we kind of promised it was coming. We have it available. It's been available since last May. We've been working on different groups to kind of use this tool to its fullest. So what is it? It's called Goals and Alignment, and what you do is you add some goals, course goals, program goals, maybe even accreditation standards or goals, or maybe it's a standard that you have for a particular profession, and you're going to add them into a goals area, and then you align them with different assessments and activities that you have for your students. And it creates this goal performance dashboard that you see in the screen in front of you. So what I've done here is I actually took some baccalaureate goals that we have at NIU, and they've been added into the system already. And I've aligned 2 of my assessments to this particular goal. In the second one, the first one is to demonstrate critical, creative, and independent thought. And I picked 2 assessments in my course that I think addresses that particular goal. The second one is that students will be able to communicate clearly and effectively. And I selected 1 assessment to align with that goal. And that can be very different. You know, you could align, you know, 8 assessments to 1 goal and 1 assessment to another. You know, it's just how you've built your course, and maybe even how you've built your program, because definitely programs address these different goals at different levels. But then as the students complete these assessments and are graded on them, this performance dashboard will tell me at what level these students are at. So my sample student here is actually showing me that she's become quite proficient in demonstrating this particular goal, but she's a little bit more foundational at this point. There may be more work to be done to kind of bring her a little bit further along with this. So this is a tool for me to be able to see how they are kind of achieving these goals, but students can also look at this. And so if this particular student looks at the goal, their own goal performance, and finds that they are foundational, they might start saying, well, what else can I do to kind of meet these goals at a higher level? So that's sort of small scale, but you can also use goals and alignments to go big and be able to see how students are performing across multiple courses, and look at your whole class, maybe even multiple semesters of your students, and how they are meeting these goals. And so that's how you can really get at, again, measuring your students in sort of a bigger way than you've ever been able to do easily before. We've always done it, but it hasn't been as easy to do before. What I would say right now is that if anybody at NIU is interested in learning more about that, to reach out to Stephanie Richter here in Faculty Development, and we will walk you through the process and how to get this going. Time is running out on me. This is one of those workshops that has so much packed into it. So I might speed things up a little bit. The next one is we can now measure students' learning using wearable devices. And so the idea behind this is that we can kind of look at students' wellness in order to determine if that's affecting their learning in any way. So it's not something that we're doing here at NIU, but they are doing it at universities. Are students getting enough exercise? Are they sleeping well? And we're able to actually measure that now by using some of these wearable devices. So that's kind of an exciting trend that's coming up. Flexible learning spaces is another trend, and that has to do with not thinking about your normal classroom, faculty in front, students sitting stuffed behind these little desks, that now we can kind of move things around, change the dynamic of their space depending on what they're doing. But this is actually a face-to-face course. So what can we do in an online course? Well, we can try to create some of these new ecosystems. And some of them are just allowing, they're already allowed to be a little bit more flexible in their location and their schedule because they're online. But some of the other tools that we've talked about this afternoon also will allow them to learn with their peers a little bit more and allow them to be a little bit more intentional about what they're learning at work and incorporating it into their classrooms. So I invite you to think about your learning spaces and how they can be more flexible in an online environment, because that seems to be one of those trends that they are finding a lot of value in some of these reports. So this particular diagram that I have on here, I want to give the authors credit to that. This report just came out from the Office of Educational Technology from the U.S. Department of Education. Literally came out like yesterday or this morning. I received it this morning and I thought, why didn't I get this report 2 days ago? So I really haven't read through it that much, but it does talk a lot about how you can be a little bit more aware of what's happening in higher ed and how educational technology is influencing classrooms and students in a variety of different ways. So if you get a chance, read through this report. I know this is going to be the next thing on my list to do so that I can share anything I learned from that report with you. Just a reminder that NIU has offered the David W. Ryan Grant for Use in Technology and Teaching. I usually introduce it in this workshop because it's usually due right around now. When I clicked on this link here, and you can kind of put it out there, just type it into the, yeah, thanks for circling. If you type that URL into your space there, you can look it up. It was actually due at the end of middle of January actually already, but if you have a great idea on how to use technology in teaching, think about that grant for next year. Again, this afternoon, we explored some new technologies to create content, enhance communications, and to collaborate with your students. And we discovered some new trends that, again, are on the horizon or are happening right now in higher ed. In summary, don't forget, don't get too excited about the technology. Make sure it's solving a problem that you have in your online course. And we can definitely talk strategies. Reach out to me. Again, my name is Tracy. I'm the online teaching coordinator. Feel free to email me. I love to